ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. I am Canon EOS photographer, Randall and Rueff. That's right, Canon EOS photographer, Canon camera, different lens. In this video, I'm going to talk to you about this lens. Take it off. Take this off of this. This goes on the camera. Oh, this goes on the camera. Wrong one. And this goes on the lens. We're going to talk about this lens, which is autofocus, made in Japan, made by Phoenix. Here it is, the Phoenix 28 to 300 millimeter lens. And in this video, I want to talk about if the Phoenix 28 to 300 millimeter lens was in fact the Canon 28 to 300 millimeter lens. So let's talk about the similarities and the differences between the Phoenix 28 to 300 millimeter and the Canon 28 to 300 millimeter. Now, to begin with, both lenses have a cap on the end to protect the glass before you put it on the camera, and after you're done using it, easily comes off, puts on with a twist, no big deal. Similar. This Phoenix has a manual focus and an autofocus. So does the Canon 28 to 300 millimeter. Although the Canon 28 to 300 millimeter, which I don't have or don't own, has an additional settings for autofocus. There's some different settings. We'll talk about that later. So you got the autofocus and manual here for the Phoenix, and it's the same as the 28 to 300 with the Canon, except like I said, again, the Canon has some additional settings for autofocus, like image stabilization and so on. But anyway, this lens does not have that. Which I wish it did. But that's one of the reasons I would like to have the Canon 28 to 300 millimeter. Next, we have the zoom. Locks at the Phoenix locks at 28. You push it this way. You can push and pull zoom. Okay. In fact, the numbers are right there. 328. You can see approximately where you're at. And there's a chip on the inside that tells the camera the exact focal length. So while you can't see the exact focal length, you know, it's just kind of average numbers. It gives you approximate. Inside there's a chip that tells the camera the exact focal length. So it records it as part of the image. As does the Canon 28 to 300 millimeter. Now the difference in the push-pull here is, with the Canon 28 to 300 millimeter, you have a little dial you can twist, and you can tighten it and lock it excuse me, at different focal lengths. So, for example, you could lock it at 50 or 75 or whatever you want to lock it in between 20 and 300. However, with this Phoenix, the only place you can lock it is at 28. Okay. Now you can unlock it, and you can lock it here at any distance, but it doesn't lock. So what happens is if you lock it before it gets to 28, it slides, and when it gets down to 28, it clicks in, and then it locks. And then to unlock it, you just have to push the button over again. So it's a bit different from the Canon. That's one of the reasons the Canon lens is better than this Phoenix lens. This is a nice lens, don't get me wrong. That's a reason that it's better, because you can lock it at different lengths. Whereas the Phoenix, you can only lock it to the widest aperture, or not the widest aperture, the widest focal length, excuse me. Okay, next you have manual focus. You don't have to put a manual focus, you can do that. You can also do that with the Canon lens, no big deal. You can manually focus it if you want to. Next, we'll talk about the cap, similar to the Canon, except this one says Phoenix and Canon says Canon, obviously. This has a filter on it, a UV, I don't know if you can see that, but it's UV 0, which basically means it doesn't add or subtract any light, it's just there for protection. It's It's there because this filter costs about $25, and the lens, if I didn't have a filter and I hit something against the lens itself, that would basically have to fill the lens. Let me say it again. If I didn't have the filter there, which costs about $25, and something should hit the lens and scratch it or break it or do some damage, I would basically have to throw this whole lens away. And it's like $300, almost $400 when I bought it. It's a lot cheaper now, probably about $300 now, but give or take. But the point is, I'm using a filter, and again, a UV0, which means it has no coating or it doesn't block any UV rays. It's there to be zero. In other words, it's just there for protection. It's a protective lens. Because if I break this filter lens, that's $25, you know, 25, 30 bucks. Which again isn't cheap, but it's a lot cheaper than breaking $300, $400. So I'd rather break nothing, obviously. But if I'm going to break it, I want to break this filter instead of the lens. So that's why I have it. Some people like to have either UV, maybe a 2 or 3 or whatever number, to change like flesh tones or the sky. I mean, you can get different kinds of UV filters, and the beauty of having a UV filter like this is you can add additional filters. Like if you wanted to have 2 or 3 or 4, 20 filters, I guess you could. I don't know why you'd want that many, but well, it has threads on the bottom and on the inside, so you can add filters if you want to. So that's a neat little option, but I only have one. I only really need one for what I do, at least. Some people may want more, or have a use for more, or do some artistic stuff, and good for them. But now, this is a 77 size filter, same as the Canon 28 to 300 millimeter. So it's the same size that Canon uses, which is cool. And this, I mean, if this is probably the one I would use if I had the Canon 28 to 300 millimeter. So it's a Hoya. Would I might use a Hoya on the Canon? It just depends what's online and who's selling what price, because this is UV0. It really depends on the price. I'm probably going to get the cheapest one that is UV0, to be honest. That's online. Unless there's like a real close price, I mean, it's not too much of a difference, then I might buy a better lens. But normally I'm going to use a cheaper one. Again, unless the price difference is negligible, very small, I'm going to go with the cheap one. And if it's not too bad, maybe I'll go up to the better quality one. Because it's, like I said, it's UV0. It's not actually filtering anything. It's just basically a piece of glass. So try to get the cheapest one you can, because they're not too. But keeping that in mind, they're not. Even the high end for UV0 isn't that expensive. I mean, you're talking 20, 30. I mean, the top one I've seen was for 35, 40 bucks maybe. So I mean, that's like the top end. So professional high end. So I mean, well, that's not true. I think I saw one for 42 one time, but easily under 50 bucks. Okay, so easily under 50 bucks for a super high quality. And like I said, I think I spent $19.95 plus tax and shipping when I got this one, so about 25 bucks. Next thing we'll talk about is the red ring. That means it's higher quality. Now Canon also has this, but it's even higher quality than this. The Canon one is. So this is the red ring. Means it's compatible with Canon, and it's a higher quality lens of the lens of this company. It's a high-end lens. Or they consider it a high-end lens. Canon's the same way. Red ring means it's high quality. They're highest quality, with the exception of a few green ones. There's a few green ones that have, but they don't make very many green lenses that have the green ring. But that's used for different purposes. I'll talk about it in a different video. But Canon has the red ring. Basically, the red ring means Canon and high quality. I mean, this isn't Canon, but it's compatible. It's compatible with Canon cameras, is what I'm saying, with the red ring. So there it is, 28 to 300 millimeter Phoenix. Another difference in lenses, the two lenses between the Canon and this one, is the price. And the reason you were paying for about $300 to $400 for this, and compared to about $2,500, $26, $27, depending on where you find it on the internet, for the Canon 2300, is the fact that the Canon lens has two things going for it that this lens doesn't. One, better build quality, meaning the materials are better, and it's manufactured to better tolerances, and it's just overall better built. Secondly, the glass is better. I'm talking about the glass in the lens is a higher quality. It's got fluorite, which is Canon uses a lot of their lenses nowadays, if not most of them. All the current ones. They didn't always use it, but anyway, they use fluorite, which helps with how do I explain this? For longer lenses, it helps not mess up the edges and sides. It's a nice thing to have in your lenses. I mean, I can go into great detail, but basically, it's better for longer lenses, for keeping the light the way you want it to go. Like, for example, if you didn't have fluorite glass, or not glass, but covering or stuff, the edges of your extreme telephoto, your edges, the photo can be distorted, and with fluorite, which this does not have, but the Canon 2300mm does have, it corrects that problem by having the fluorite in covering on the glass of the lens. I wish this lens had it, but between the better material, the better manufacturing, the better build quality, and the fact that the glass is better in and of itself, plus has the fluorite, those are the differences that take this, the difference between this being $400, $300 to $400, and the Canon being $25, $26, $27, $2,800, depending on where you find it. So you're going to get, the Canon lens is going to be faster autofocus, sharper, crisper, better autofocus, faster autofocus. It's going to, if you drop it, which I never dropped this, but if you drop it, it's going to last longer. It's going to last longer. This lasts pretty good, though. I have to admit, I mean, granted, I take care of my stuff, so this has lasted a long time. But, I mean, if we were to put these two lenses, this one and a Canon 2300mm, and put them through the exact same thing, the Canon lens is going to last a lot better. Plus, it's got more features. It's got more advanced chips on the inside. I mean, it's better in so many different ways. Plus, it's white with the red ring as compared to this as being, I don't know, I'll call that a bronzish with the black. This black part right here is plastic covering over it. So is this. So it's, again, not bad, but the Canon would be built more durable. And plus, the Canon has a thing where you can put a ring on it, so you can hold the camera and the lens by the lens, so you don't mess up the camera. Not that this is a real heavy lens, but just saying, being able to support the camera and the lens by the lens is more sturdy and protects the camera, so that the connection between the lens and the camera doesn't shake and wobble, and the lens doesn't try to be too heavy, or front end heavy. Because if it gets too big, too front heavy, and you have a tripod back here on the camera, it can generally, if it's real too front end heavy, it can, these connection points can stretch, or it can stretch the camera, and then you're broken. You got a real expensive camera that has broken, you don't want that. So that's why the 28 to 300mm from Canon is better than this. This is nice, but the Canon's a lot better. I wish I owned one. I wish I owned a 1DC or better camera. There's nothing better than the 1DC from Canon right now, but that's the one I wish I had. So I can do 4K and do still photos and do everything. It'd be awesome. But until then, I'm using my Phoenix 28 to 300 autofocus, manual focus. Let's see what we got here. Let's see. I don't know what the aperture. Let's see what the apertures are on this thing. It looks like it goes from 1.9 to 12 aperture, which is kind of odd. No, that's the meters. Excuse me. That's not the aperture. I'm not sure what the aperture. I have to look at that and see what the aperture is. But anyway, the Canon is 3.5. I think it's a 5.7 if I'm familiar. This one's probably similar. I'll have to look up the exact specs. You can look it up online. But anyway, as far as aperture, they're possibly the same. So that's not a big deal. Other than they're built better for that. Anyway, that's why the Canon EOS 28 to 300 millimeter lens is so much better than this lens. Again, the downside to, or the advantage to having this lens is it costs a lot less. That's the only advantage. That's the only advantage that this lens has is the cost. Okay? So, if you've got the money to get the 28-300 from Canon, I would recommend it. If you don't, and you want something, this is a good lens. So, that's all I have. So hopefully I've given you some valuable information on the 28 to 300 millimeter lens, both the Phoenix, for those of you who can't afford the Canon 28 to 300 millimeter, or simply don't want to spend the money for whatever reason. But if you're serious about photography, or serious and have the money, I would definitely go with the Canon. It's worth the extra money, and believe me, if I had the extra money, I would buy it. Of course, if I actually had the extra money, I would get the 1DC instead of the digital XC. Nice camera, but it's no 1DX or 1DC. Anyway, of course, there's a lot of things I do for a lot of money. But anyway, I hope this video will give you some information to think about when deciding on which 28 to 300 millimeter for your Canon camera you want to get. Now, let's talk about something else before I end out this video. The reason I like the 28 to 300 millimeter is because it is the lens with the widest focal length. In other words, you can go wide angle at 28 to standard at 50, all the way to 300 telephoto. So it's got the widest focal length that has a wide aperture, that has a wide millimeter focal length. Terminology right there. Anyway, so that's the reason I like the 28 to 300, because you can go from wide angle. So I mean, if you're sitting a few feet away from somebody, and then all of a sudden you need to go focus on somebody that's, half the room away, you don't have to switch lenses. You got one lens. All you gotta do is push and pull. Boom, take a picture. You're done. Trust me, I've been there where I had to switch lenses. I had a 20. Back when I had my Minolta. When I was using film, I had a 28 to 70, a 70 to 210, and a 400. And especially when you go from 28 to 70 or 70 to 210, there's a lot of times where you have to switch, and there's a lot of times I know I miss the shot. It's so frustrating when you're, I gotta get it close up. I get the 70 to 200, I gotta get the 20 to 70, I gotta switch it, and it's like they're doing something and you miss it because you're sitting there switching lenses. Well, if you got something like this, or the Canon 2300 millimeter, you don't have to worry about that near as much. Trust me, this is 2300 is the way you want to go. Now, there's a lot of people that tell you that the 2300 or similar lenses aren't good because you can't blur out the background. That is completely not true. Now, granted, it may not completely blur out the background as good as, say, a 1.0 or a 1.2 or a 1.4, but it can still blur out the background pretty good with this, and definitely with the Canon one. So, there's the information. I know there's been a lot in this video. I hope you have enjoyed it, and can help you decide which lens to get, depending on what you want to do, how much money you have, how serious you take your photography, what kind of photo results you want to have, and things of this nature. So it really all depends. I hope this video helps. And until next time, I am Canon EOS photographer, Randall and Rueff, saying thanks for watching. Have a good day. And of course, may God bless you. Bye. Oh yeah, and always remember, keep taking those pictures. Bye.